Welcome back to Things I Know Nothing About, the podcast where we dive deep into topics we thought we understood, only to realize the truth is far more nuanced and often, frankly, a bit unsettling today. Maya, we're tackling a subject that has exploded in popularity, dominating headlines and social media feeds, GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy.
Oh, Alex, this is a huge one. It feels like you can't go 5 minutes without hearing about Ozempic, whether it's from a celebrity, a friend, or an ad. These drugs have been hailed as a revolutionary breakthrough, offering dramatic weight loss results that for many seemed almost too good to be true. Billions in revenue, incredible transformations, it certainly captured everyone's attention.
Absolutely. The hype is undeniable, and for many, these medications have genuinely been life-changing, offering a new path forward in managing what is a complex and often debilitating chronic disease, obesity. But as with most things that seem miraculous, there's always a but. And today, we're going to dig into what some are calling Ozempic's dirty secret, what really happens when you stop taking these drugs.
That's right. Because while the initial weight loss can be profound, the question of long-term sustainability, especially off the medication, is critical. There's a growing body of research that suggests the journey doesn't end when you stop the injections, and in fact, for many, it leads to a rapid reversal of those hard-won gains. We're talking about a significant shift in understanding, moving from a temporary fix to a potentially lifelong commitment.
Indeed, and we're going to dive into a specific piece of research that really brings this home, a January 2026 BMJ systematic review and meta-analysis with the catchy DOI of 10.1136 BMJ 2025-085304 offers some pretty stark insights into what happens after discontinuing these weight management medications. This study, funded in part by the National Institute of Health and Care Research, looked at 37 studies and over 9,000 participants.
A systematic review and meta-analysis is really the gold standard for evidence, combining data from multiple studies to get a broader, more reliable picture. So, what did this significant research reveal about the weight regain rates once people stop taking these powerful GLP-1 drugs? I'm genuinely curious because this is the core of our dirty secret discussion.
The findings are quite striking, Maya. The analysis found that after stopping weight management medications generally, individuals, on average, regained weight at a rate of about 0.4 kilograms or roughly 0.9 pounds per month now. That's for all weight management medications, but for the newer incretin mimetics like semaglutide, which is Ozempic and Wegovy and tirzepatide, the regain was even faster.
Faster. You say that certainly sounds concerning, especially given how quickly some people lose weight on these medications. Can you give us some more specific numbers for the GLP-1 drugs? Because that's what everyone is really interested in when we talk about Ozempic and Wegovy. What was the average regain rate for those particular medications?
For those specific GLP-1 drugs, the regain averaged 0.8 kilograms or approximately 1.8 pounds per month. This means that at that rate, projections indicate a return to baseline weight by roughly 1.5 years after stopping the medication. That's a pretty rapid reversal compared to the often slower, more gradual weight loss journey people experience while on the drug.
Wow, 1.8 pounds a month of regain and potentially back to square one in a year and a half. That's a really significant piece of information that I think many people considering or currently on these drugs might not fully grasp. It really challenges the perception of these drugs as a temporary fix to jumpstart weight loss before maintaining it through other means.
It absolutely does. And here's another critical comparison from the BMJ study. Weight regain after discontinuing these medications was found to be faster than after stopping behavioral weight management programs. We're talking about approximately 4.3 kilograms or 4.7 pounds per month faster, regardless of the initial weight lost. This suggests a distinct physiological challenge in maintaining weight loss achieved pharmacologically without ongoing intervention.
That's a crucial distinction, Alex. It implies that the body's compensatory mechanisms, which often fight against weight loss and promote regain, might be even more pronounced after discontinuing a GLP-1 drug compared to what happens after a purely behavioral intervention. It's not just that you stop losing weight, your body actively pushes back towards its previous set point, and it does so with surprising speed.
Precisely. Other studies support this, showing that patients regained an average of 60% of the weight lost within 1 year after discontinuation. with modeling suggesting it eventually plateaus at 75.3% of the initial weight loss. Semaglutide specifically has shown the highest weight regain after discontinuation compared to other anti-obesity drugs in some meta-analyses. This isn't just a minor fluctuation, it's a substantial return to previous weight levels.
So, the majority of the weight lost can be expected to return. And quite quickly, this really underscores the idea that for many, these drugs aren't just a kickstart, but rather a continuous treatment. It's not just about the numbers on the scale either, is it? What about the other health benefits that people gain while on these medications? Do those stick around, or do they also reverse?
That's an excellent question, Maya. And unfortunately, the news isn't much better there. The BMJ study also revealed that cardiometabolic markers, things like HbA1c for blood sugar control, fasting glucose, total cholesterol, triglycerides, and blood pressure, which significantly improved during treatment, were estimated to return to baseline levels within 1.4 years of medication cessation.
So, the health benefits, which are often the primary reason doctors prescribe these for people with type 2 diabetes or those at high cardiovascular risk, are largely contingent on continued use. This means that if you stop the medication, you're not just regaining weight, you're also potentially losing those vital protective effects against heart disease, stroke, and diabetes complications. It's a comprehensive reversal, not just a cosmetic one.
Exactly.
This really leads us directly to the forever question. The data strongly suggests that GLP-1 drugs are not a temporary fix, but rather a long-term, possibly lifelong treatment for obesity, which is increasingly recognized as a chronic relapsing condition. It's a paradigm shift in how we view and treat obesity, moving it into the same category as hypertension or type 2 diabetes, which often require lifelong medication.
That's a crucial point. And it's one that I think many patients might not be fully prepared for when they start these medications. The idea of taking a drug indefinitely, potentially for the rest of their lives, is a very different proposition than a short-term course. This has huge implications for patient education and what doctors should be communicating up.
It certainly does. A survey of US adults highlighted this perfectly. Interest in GLP-1 receptor agonists for weight management dropped from 45% to 14% once individuals were informed about the likelihood of weight regain after discontinuing treatment. This really underscores the importance of transparent patient education regarding the chronic nature of the treatment, because the initial appeal might diminish significantly with full disclosure.
That's a massive drop in interest, Alex. It shows that people are making a cost-benefit analysis, and if the benefit requires indefinite use with a significant financial and lifestyle commitment, many are rethinking it. It also highlights a potential disconnect between the public perception, often fueled by quick fix narratives, and the scientific reality of these medications.
Precisely, if you're going to commit to something that could be lifelong, you need to understand the full scope of that commitment from the outset. Now, another significant concern that often comes up in discussions about GLP-1 drugs is muscle loss. People hear about losing weight rapidly and immediately worry about shedding lean mass, which is a valid concern for overall health and metabolism.
Yes, the Ozempic face and the Ozempic butt are common terms floating around, often referring to the loss of volume that can happen with rapid weight loss, which people mistakenly attribute only to fat loss. So, what do the actual numbers say about muscle loss with GLP-1 drugs, and how does it compare to other methods of weight loss? Is it uniquely alarming, or is this a feature of any significant weight reduction?
This is where we need to be very careful with the framing, Maya, and avoid sensationalizing. Research indicates that approximately 25 to 40% of the total weight lost on semaglutide may come from lean body mass, which includes muscle, bone, and water. Now, that sounds like a significant percentage when you just hear muscle loss, but here's the critical context. This percentage is consistent with muscle loss experienced through any significant caloric deficit, such as traditional dieting or bariatric surgery.
That's a really important distinction, Alex. So, it's not that GLP-1 drugs are uniquely eating away at muscle, but rather that any method that creates a substantial caloric deficit leading to significant weight loss will naturally result in a proportion of that loss coming from lean mass, not just fat. It's a fundamental physiological response, not a specific side effect of the drug itself.
Exactly. The mechanism of muscle loss is primarily a consequence of the overall caloric deficit created by the medication, which suppresses appetite and slows gastric emptying, leading to reduced food intake. It's not a direct catabolic effect of the drug on muscle fibers, so the drug helps you eat less, you lose weight, and a portion of that weight will inevitably be lean mass.
That makes a lot of sense. So, the concern isn't that Ozempic causes muscle loss in a unique way, but rather that the rapid and significant weight loss it facilitates means that people will lose muscle just as they would with any other effective weight loss method. It's a consequence of the process, not a specific flaw of the drug.
And there's even more nuance here, while there's some absolute loss of lean mass. Studies like the Step 1 trial showed that the proportion of lean mass relative to total body weight actually increased, indicating an overall favorable shift towards a leaner body composition. So while you might lose some absolute muscle, your body composition improves overall because you're losing a much larger proportion of fat. One study even found that liver mass decreased more than muscle mass, suggesting that general lean body mass reduction might overstate the impression of muscle loss specifically.
That's a very helpful detail. So it's not just about the absolute amount of muscle lost, but the ratio of fat to muscle that remains a higher proportion of lean mass relative to fat is generally considered a healthier body composition. It seems like the media narrative around muscle loss with Ozempic might be a bit oversimplified, lacking this crucial comparative context.
It often is. And what about when you stop the drug? In mouse models, semaglutide-induced lean mass and muscle function loss largely reflected caloric restriction, and both lean and fat mass, as well as grip strength, recovered after treatment discontinuation when body weight returned to pre-treatment levels. While animal studies don't perfectly translate to humans, it suggests that these changes aren't necessarily permanent if weight is regained.
Interesting. So, if the weight comes back, the muscle might too. But that also brings us back to the initial problem of the weight coming back in the first place, which is what we're trying to avoid. What can people do to mitigate muscle loss while they're actually on GLP-1 treatment? Are there strategies to help preserve that valuable lean mass?
Absolutely. To preserve muscle mass during GLP-1 treatment, adequate protein intake, we're talking 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight daily, and consistent resistance training at least twice weekly are strongly recommended. Rapid weight loss exceeding 1 to 2 pounds per week without sufficient protein can indeed increase the risk of muscle wasting. So it's about being strategic with diet and exercise alongside the medication.
That makes complete sense. It's not just about taking the pill or injection. It's about integrating it into a comprehensive lifestyle plan that prioritizes muscle health. So, while the initial concerns about muscle loss aren't entirely unfounded, they need to be contextualized within the broader physiology of weight loss and addressed with appropriate dietary and exercise strategies.
Precisely.
This leads us seamlessly into our next major point, which is arguably the biggest barrier for many people considering these medications: the cost. If we're talking about a long-term, potentially lifelong treatment, then the financial implications become immense. This is the 1,000 Nort mirth forever question that looms large for so many.
Oh, the cost is absolutely prohibitive for a huge number of people, Alex. Without insurance, the monthly list price for Ozempic is around $936 to $1,028, and for Wegovy, it's even higher, about $1,349 to $1,350 for a 28-day supply. Annually, we're looking at $16,200 or more for Wegovy. That's a car payment, a mortgage payment for some people, or a substantial portion of an annual salary.
It's astronomical, especially when you compare it to what people in other countries pay. These prices are substantially higher in the US compared to other high-income countries. For instance, Ozempic's average list price in the US is more than 5 times higher than in Japan, where it's about $169, and significantly higher than in the UK at $93 or France at $83. This vast discrepancy highlights a systemic issue within the US healthcare market.
That's just infuriating for many patients, knowing that the same drug is available for a fraction of the cost elsewhere. It really puts a spotlight on the unique challenges of healthcare access and affordability in the United States, and even with insurance, coverage for these medications, especially for weight loss rather than diabetes, varies widely and can be extremely limited, leading to incredibly high out-of-pocket costs for patients.
Indeed, insurance coverage is a huge hurdle. Many plans simply don't cover weight loss medications, deeming them lifestyle drugs rather than essential medical treatments, despite the growing recognition of obesity as a chronic disease. This lack of coverage is a major factor in the high discontinuation rates we see, 50% within a year and 75% within 2 years, often attributed to adverse effects, but also significantly to insurance limitations or prescribing restrictions.
So, people start, see great results, but then hit a wall with the cost or their insurance coverage, and they're forced to stop. And as we've already discussed, stopping leads to rapid weight regain and a reversal of health benefits. This creates a really disheartening cycle where people might feel like they're being offered a solution only to have it pulled out from under them due to financial barriers.
It's a significant ethical and access problem. Now, there's been some recent news regarding pricing. Novo Nordisk announced in February 2026 that it plans to cut the list price of Ozempic, Wegovy, and Ribosys to $675 per month effective January 1, 2027. On the surface, that sounds like a positive step towards making them more affordable.
That sounds promising, Alex. A price reduction, especially one that's significant, could make a real difference for patients. However, knowing how these things usually work, I have a feeling there's a catch or some important nuance we need to consider. Is this price cut going to genuinely benefit everyone? Or are there specific conditions attached to it?
You're right to be skeptical, Maya. These cuts are primarily intended to reduce costs within the insured market, meaning they aim to lower the net price for insurers and pharmacy benefit managers. They may not directly impact the direct-to-patient self-pay prices that many individuals face if their insurance doesn't cover it or they have high deductibles. So while it's a step, it's not necessarily a universal solution for the self-pay patient struggling with the 1,000 mirth forever dilemma.
So, it's more of a negotiation tactic within the complex insurance ecosystem than a direct price reduction for the average person standing at the pharmacy counter without robust coverage. This means that for many, the financial barrier will likely remain substantial, forcing them into that difficult choice between their health and their budget, especially for a medication that seems to require indefinite use.
Exactly. And this leads us to the core tension of our discussion today. Are GLP-1 drugs a genuine medical breakthrough, offering unprecedented hope for a chronic disease, or are they, in practice, becoming a kind of subscription trap that locks individuals into a costly, lifelong dependency with significant consequences if they discontinue? Let's steelman both sides of this argument because there are compelling points on each.
I think it's really important to acknowledge the incredible potential these drugs represent. From the perspective of a medical breakthrough, GLP-1 receptor agonists have undeniably revolutionized obesity therapeutics. They facilitate 10 to 15% weight loss, which far exceeds what lifestyle interventions alone typically achieve. For individuals who have struggled for decades with obesity, this level of weight reduction can lead to profound improvements in their quality of life, mobility, and self-esteem.
That's a very strong point, Maya. Beyond just the weight loss, we've seen demonstrable improvements in cardiometabolic outcomes. During treatment, these drugs lead to reductions in HbA1c, fasting glucose, cholesterol, and blood pressure. These aren't just cosmetic changes, these are hard clinical benefits that reduce the risk of serious health complications.
And let's not forget the expanded indications, Alex. Wegovy has received approval to prevent major adverse cardiovascular events like heart attacks, strokes, and heart-related deaths in overweight or obese adults with established cardiovascular disease. It's also showing promise for metabolic dysfunction-associated steatohepatitis, or MASH. These approvals really showcase the broader therapeutic potential, moving beyond mere weight loss to actually preventing and managing severe health complications.
That truly solidifies the medical breakthrough argument. For many, obesity is a chronic disease with strong biological underpinnings, making it incredibly difficult to manage through willpower alone. GLP-1s provide a potent tool to manage this condition, akin to lifelong medications for hypertension or diabetes, offering a medical solution where lifestyle interventions, while important, have often been insufficient on their own. They address a physiological imbalance, not just a behavioral one.
So, for people who view obesity as a chronic, biologically driven disease, these drugs are seen as essential, long-term tools, much like insulin for diabetes. They're not a moral failing, they're a medical condition requiring medical intervention. That's a powerful argument for their transformative potential and why they are indeed a breakthrough.
Now, let's pivot to the subscription trap argument, which also has some very compelling points, particularly when you consider the data we've just discussed. The primary issue here is the dependency for efficacy. The rapid and significant weight regain, along with the reversal of cardiometabolic benefits upon cessation, means that the therapeutic effects are largely dependent on continuous use. This effectively creates a long-term or indefinite need for the medication.
And that indefinite need, when coupled with the exorbitant cost, especially in the US without comprehensive insurance coverage, makes lifelong treatment economically unsustainable for a vast number of people. This financial burden can trap individuals into a high-cost, ongoing commitment just to maintain the health benefits they initially achieved. It feels less like a cure and more like a never-ending payment plan.
Exactly. And the discontinuation challenges are very real. High discontinuation rates, often due to side effects or these financial and insurance barriers, mean many patients simply cannot maintain the treatment. This leads to that rebound effect, which can be incredibly disheartening and some might argue potentially worse than if they hadn't started at all, given the psychological and physiological toll of losing and regaining weight.
There's also a concern about the lack of integrated support. Alex, there are worries about unregulated use and fragmented prescribing pathways that may lack the structured education, lifestyle support, and monitoring necessary to help patients develop sustainable habits while the drugs are effective without comprehensive integrated care that includes nutritional guidance, exercise plans, and psychological support. Their long-term benefit, particularly if medication is stopped, can be limited to just the pharmacological action.
That's a crucial point. It's not just about the drug, it's about the holistic care surrounding it. Without that, it can feel like you're handed a powerful tool, but left to figure out how to use it optimally and sustainably on your own. And finally, there are the ethical implications of this dependency. The rapid return to baseline weight and health markers after stopping raises serious ethical questions about prescribing these powerful drugs for short-term use without clear long-term management plans and financial accessibility.
So, the concern is that it could be seen as exploiting the chronic nature of obesity for continuous revenue, especially if patients aren't fully informed about the lifelong commitment and the financial implications up front. It presents a moral quandary for healthcare providers and pharmaceutical companies alike. Are we offering a true solution, or are we creating a cycle of dependency that primarily benefits the bottom line?
It's a very complex picture, Maya, and there's no easy answer. On one hand, these drugs are undeniably effective and offer immense health benefits for a population that desperately needs new tools to combat obesity and its related conditions. On the other hand, the cost, the dependency, and the rapid reversal upon cessation raise legitimate questions about accessibility, long-term sustainability, and the ethical responsibilities of all involved.
I think what's clear from our discussion today is that the narrative around Ozempic and similar GLP-1 drugs is far more intricate than the initial headlines or social media buzz might suggest. It's not a simple weight loss miracle pill, nor is it purely a trap. It's a powerful medical tool that comes with significant benefits, but also significant implications that demand a thorough, informed understanding from both patients and prescribers.
Absolutely, patients considering these medications need to have a frank conversation with their doctors about the long-term commitment, the potential for weight regain if discontinued, the importance of diet and exercise alongside the medication, and critically, the financial burden. It really highlights the need for a comprehensive integrated approach to obesity care, where medication is one tool among many, supported by robust lifestyle interventions and accessible pricing.
And it reminds us that there are rarely quick fixes in health. Chronic diseases often require chronic management, and understanding that upfront is key. What Ozempic and Wegovy reveal is not just about these specific drugs, but about the broader challenges of managing a complex condition like obesity in a healthcare system that struggles with affordability and long-term care integration.
Indeed. So while GLP-1 drugs are a significant advancement, their dirty secret isn't that they don't work, but that their benefits are largely conditional on continuous use. And that condition comes with a considerable price tag and the need for a commitment that many may not be fully prepared for. Thank you for joining us on Things I Know Nothing About, where we try to make sense of the complex world around us.
And thank you, Alex, for always digging into the nuances and helping us understand these important topics with the depth they deserve. We hope this episode has given you a clearer, more informed perspective on GLP-1 drugs and what happens when you stop.